Now, what is the cross section? Um, Depending on how you cut through a polyhedron, the shape of the cross section, could vary. So in this example, if you cut through the polyhedron parallel to the two triangular bases, then the cross section would be a triangle. Now let's take a look at this piece of celery here. So if you cut through it, that's the shape, right? So different types of vegetables have different shapes for their cross sections. Now in geometry, or in cases of, three-dimensional figures, for example, this circular cylinder, when a plane such as this piece of paper here, or any um, any flat surface. So when the plane cuts through a three-dimensional figure, the shape that is formed, that's actually the cross section. But in how many ways can you cut through the cylinder? I mean, you could also cut it perpendicular to the two circular bases. So if that's the case, the shape would be different, right? Right now, you're looking at a square pyramid, or a rectangular pyramid rather. It's a rectangular pyramid because the base is a rectangle, right? Earlier I mentioned square pyramid. Is that possible? Well, yes, it is. If this rectangle you know, transforms into a square, meaning all the sides are congruent, then the pyramid will become a square pyramid. But going back to cross section, so if you cut through the pyramid such that the plane is parallel to the rectangular base, then the cross section would also be a rectangle. So you're looking at a square prism right now. So the cross section of the square prism is also a four-sided shape. Um, the next one is a cube. So a cube has all its, faces um, congruent to each other. So the cross section is a square. Well, here, it's called a pentagonal prism. Why? Because the two parallel bases are pentagons. So if a polyhedron has two parallel bases, you call it a prism. Now, how are prisms named? So prisms are named based on the shapes of their parallel bases. So this is an example of a pentagonal prism, and if the plane cutting through the prism is parallel to the bases, then the cross section would also be a pentagon. It is important to note, though, that not all three-dimensional shapes are polyhedrons. For example, these two are polyhedrons, but these three are not. So, what do you see among these three examples that are not in the first two? So, as you can see here, um, all the all the faces of these polyhedrons are polygons. But here, a cylinder has a curved surface. Same is true for the cone, it has a curved surface. And of course, for a sphere, it's curved all over. So if a three-dimensional figure has curved surfaces, then it's not a polyhedron. And lastly, what is the difference between a prism and a pyramid? So the difference is in the number of bases. So a polyhedron is a prism if it has two parallel bases. And just like what I mentioned earlier, the type of base that a polyhedron or prism has will be used to give its name. In a pyramid, there is only one base. So in this case, the base is a triangle, so you call it a triangular pyramid.